I've had my brand new Kindle for a little under a month at this point, and I'm here to give you guys the complete breakdown on everything you should know about it. We're going to go over 12 categories together to see whether it's worth it, whether you should buy it in 2025, or whether you should go for some alternatives. So the first category we're going to look at is going to be build quality and design. In terms of size, the Kindle is really small. It's going to fit anywhere that your phone can fit. It can fit in your pocket, in any pocket in your bag, and overall it's just really, really portable. Much more so than a phone, for example, that's much heavier. In terms of bezels, honestly, at a first glance, you're gonna think that it does have a lot of bezels because nowadays we're used to every phone having as little bezels as possible. But with the Kindle, you have to keep in mind that it's made to resemble a book. And usually when you're reading on a book, you're gonna have a thumb or a finger in some place on the page that's usually going to be covering some words. So in terms of the Kindle, it actually makes a lot of sense since it's a screen to have that extra bezel so that you could hold the screen from there. If they didn't have the bezels and they made it a complete screen like all of the new iPhones, then we get a lot more misclicks and it'd be a lot more annoying to actually hold since you'd be accidentally flipping the page every now and then. So although it does have a very outdated look for this day and age, I think it actually does make a lot of sense. And then in terms of the feel in hand, the only con I really have to say about this is that it's very, very slippery. When I first got mine, I realized that the plastic on the back is very slippery and it's very easy to let go of, which means that you're going to have to be prepared to get a Kindle and then get a case straight away. You're obviously not going to want to be using your Kindle, reading, maybe even accidentally falling asleep, and then your Kindle ending up on the floor. So that is a little con you're going to have to keep in mind, but it really isn't that big since cases are usually $5, $10, or $15. In terms of the display, this is obviously an e-ink display, so it isn't OLED or AMOLED like all the new phones are. This is e-ink, which means it's obviously going to act a little different to how phones would. But that acting different does give it a lot of benefits that phones nowadays don't usually have. One of them, and the first one, being the lighting and the glare. Because it's an e-ink display and not an OLED display like most phones are, it doesn't receive as much glare as phones do, which means that you could actually take it outside in the sun, and I'm sure you've seen videos of this, of a side-by-side comparison of an iPhone with a Kindle in the sun, and you can see how much better the Kindle looks. That's obviously due to its e-ink display. In terms of the resolution and the actual looking at the screen, well, obviously the comfort of it is insane. The eye strain you get is pretty much negative. You just don't get eye strain when you're looking at the Kindle. Obviously, if you're in a really, really dark room and you have the screen on the highest brightness, well, maybe you could get some sort of eye strain, but it isn't anything like what the phones would give you. And honestly, the comfort level from reading on an iPhone to going to a Kindle is really, really big, and it's a very big noticeable difference. And then in terms of the screen quality, it's perfect in every way it can be. I mean, you don't see any type of pixels. Obviously, there isn't any color unless you get the colored version. But on the regular Kindle Basic on the 11th gen model, the screen is more than good enough and I really have no complaints. Going on to the third category, which is going to be performance. Well, this is an area where some might say the Kindle lacks. I personally don't think it does. It's just, like I said, a different type of device than a phone. Obviously, we're used to phones being as fast as they are nowadays and having the strongest, most powerful chips inside. Well, the Kindle not only doesn't have that, but it isn't an OLED display, which means it isn't going to swipe around like a phone would. It moves at this very weird sort of one page per swipe. So you don't get this really smooth motion when you're swiping on a Kindle. It's more of a blocky sort of page, page, page. You don't get that one swipe motion. And like I said, this could be a con to many people, but in my opinion, it isn't. It's just a smaller display. It's e-ink and it's just different to what we're used to. It doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's just a tiny bit slower. Now, in terms of battery life, I know I'm moving through these categories very quickly, so I'm sorry, but I'm not trying to make the video half an hour long and there are many categories to get through. So in terms of battery life, like I was saying, Amazon promises us 6 weeks of battery life reading at half an hour a day. Now I read a little more than that. I'd say I read maybe 1 to 2 hours every day, and my battery life lasted me around a week and a half. So the 6 weeks that Amazon promises us isn't necessarily gonna be what you get. I think it really does depend as well on the screen intensity, the brightness, Wi-Fi if you have it on, if you don't, if it's on airplane mode, and I guess other features. But I definitely didn't get 6 weeks out of a full charge, so I'm not exactly sure if you will either. Either way though, I did charge it for about 1 or 2 hours and it was back to 100%, and I really don't mind that. I'm charging it for 1 hour and getting about 8 to 9 days worth of battery life, which compared to a phone where you charge it for the same hour and get about a few hours of battery life, I think it's really, really good still. Yes, it isn't exactly what they promised us, but you can still read a very long time without having to charge it. It's not going to be a constant hassle. In terms of the UI and the software, it's all really, really intuitive and easy to use. I really like the UI and how simple it is. There's really only 3 components to it. It's the home screen where you can buy all of your books. It's the library where you can actually go to read them, and then you just have the settings. Obviously, there's more features, there's more pages, there's more things like that, but the main 3 things I use on a daily basis are those 3. It isn't like a phone where you're overcomplicated, overwhelmed with a million apps and different things that you can do. On a Kindle, it really is just meant to read, and when you open it, you feel like that. There's really cool things as well, like highlighting and dictionary searches, which I didn't think you could actually do on the Kindle before I bought it. I didn't see it mentioned in any video, and when I first got it, I was actually surprised that that was something that you could do. And the way that Kindle organizes it is really cool as well, because usually when you're reading a book, let's say you highlight something in physical, and then when you finish reading the book, you forget what you highlighted. In Kindle, it's really cool because you can actually highlight it, and then the Kindle itself will create a folder where you can go to where you see everything you've highlighted in the past, and then it organizes it per book and per page, which means it's easy to go back and find exactly what you highlighted. That's a very big advantage that you don't get when reading physical books, and it's something that could put you onto the Kindle if you hadn't thought about it before. Next category is going to be the reading experience, and in this I can say it's miles better than either reading on a phone or on a physical book. And this is because I feel that with a physical book, you're just kind of forced to read at the font size that the author wanted. And that font size is usually too small for most people, because I know for me it is. I'm usually left straining when I'm not supposed to be straining to try to read the really small letters, or I'm holding up the book to my face where I can't even read anything because it's so close. With the Kindle, you have so many customizable options that you can see what font size you want, what letter you want, the spacing on each letter, the spacing on each word, the spacing on each line, and there's just so much customizability that you really think that the book is tailored to you. And due to that, you also read much faster and get through the book quicker. The next category I'm going to look at is going to be storage and content. Now, at first, when I read that the Kindle was 16 GB, I thought that was way too little, but because I was thinking about phones about 50 years ago, when all they had was like 8 gigs of RAM. And so naturally, I saw that my Kindle was going to be 16 gigs and I got very scared. But then I obviously remembered that it's a Kindle. It's not meant to download very heavy apps or have any sort of pictures or things running in the background. I've heard people say that it can store up to 1,000 books or even more. Obviously, I'm not sure if that's entirely true because I don't have 1,000 books in my library, but I without a doubt know that 16 GB is a lot of space for only books and PDFs, which means that I really don't think you're going to waste it all ever. But if you do and you are a person that reads a lot, then it does bring a 32 gigabyte version as well, so you can opt for that one instead. The next category I'm going to look at is going to be the comparison to other Kindles. Now, I did touch up on this part in one of my previous videos, which was the first week when I got my Kindle, and I did a sort of small review of it. Nothing as in-depth as this one, but I did mention the comparisons with other Kindles. So if that's something you're looking for, you can also go over to that video and check it out. Well, there's really only 3 types of Kindles. I know there are more out there, but the main ones are the Kindle Basic or the 11th gen, which is the one I have, the Kindle Paperwhite, and the Paperwhite Signature. Now, they each go up in price and they all have differing features, but I will say that the Basic is the best one for most readers. At the end of the day, reading a book doesn't take a lot of things and it doesn't need a lot of features. All you really need to do is be able to see the words on the screen, and that's pretty much it. So if you're a person that really doesn't require bells and whistles or anything like that, then you can just stick with the Kindle 11th Gen, which is the one I have. If you are interested though in the other models because you're a person that does read a lot and you want to make a bigger investment, then I do recommend going and checking out my other video because I did do a more in-depth dive into the 3 different types of Kindles. Going into the 9th category, which is going to be value for money, I think that the amount you're spending on the Kindle and what you actually get out of it is a no-brainer. You're only spending from $100 to $150 on a Kindle if you do get the Kindle Basic, and the amount of knowledge and fun that you get from using it is really, really worth it. You're not spending that money in ways that are just going to make you bored or that aren't going to add anything to your life. You're really spending it on something that's going to give you knowledge and make you learn. If you are a person that reads nonfiction books, such as myself, then you're spending the $100 to get a lot of knowledge in return. If you're a person that reads fiction books though, well, you're still getting a lot of entertainment for those $100 that you're paying. If you are reading fiction, and I know that a lot of people that read fiction get very addicted to their books, then you're going to be using the Kindle a lot more than you think you will. So even in that side of things, it's also very beneficial and very valuable for money. So even in that point of view, it's still very valuable for what you're paying and you're still getting a lot out of it. The 10th and almost the final category is going to be who it's for. Now, like I said previously, I really think the Kindle 11th Gen is for everybody. I don't think there's a certain category of people. I think it's for everybody. If you like reading books, pick one up. It doesn't cost a lot, and you're going to see how much more you end up reading and how much quicker you actually end up finishing your books. Now, whether you go on to the more premium models like the Paperwhite Signature, or even the Oasis or the Scribe, which I mentioned there was more models out there, then that's completely up to you. But whether the Kindle is for everybody, yes, it is. If you like to read, the Kindle is for you. The next category is going to be the negatives and the limitations that it has. Now, while it doesn't have many, the only 2 I really want to mention are the waterproofing and the warm light. Now, I'm sure you've seen it everywhere else if you have looked at other reviews, but the Kindle 11th Gen doesn't have any sort of waterproofing or doesn't have a warm light, which means that if you are a person that likes to read at the pool, at the beach, or in the shower for some reason, then it's not going to be for you because it could get wet and could get damaged. Now, if you're a person that likes to read in dry spaces, such as myself, then having that waterproofing really isn't going to be necessary, so I don't think you should go up to the higher models to get it. And then in terms of the warm light, well, it's a feature that some people like and some people don't. Me, for example, I don't need it. It's a feature I've had on my phone for as long as I can remember, yet it's never been turned on. So if I didn't need it on my phone, I don't think, and I haven't needed it on my Kindle. When I am in the dark and I do want to have sort of less eye strain, I just turn on dark mode. And that's pretty much it. With dark mode, obviously the screen is entirely dark and the amount of eye strain you get is much, much less. And now onto the 12th category and my final verdict. Now, I think you guys know by the tone of this video that it's gonna be a very positive verdict. And I honestly love my Kindle and I wouldn't change it for anything in this world. I think if you do read nonfiction books, you get a lot more value out of it because it's sort of an investment at the end of the day. Yes, you're spending $100 to $150, but it's something that's gonna teach you a lot and something that you're gonna learn a lot from. You're not reading fiction or just pure entertainment. You're reading knowledge. And at the end of the day, you're getting smarter every time you pick up a Kindle. So I don't think it should be seen as a liability purchase. I think it should be seen as an investment. With that being said, I'm sorry that every category was so short spoken about, but like I said, I didn't want to make this 30 minutes long. So I'm honestly not sure how long it's gonna be. I'm hoping that it isn't too long. If it is, I'm sorry, but I do think that I gave you guys a complete review on what I believe about the Kindle and everything that you should know as well. With that being said, I do have another video on my channel about the Kindle, which was my first week using it and my first impressions. If that's something you're interested in, there's going to be a card on the corner of this video. I think on the left corner, maybe that one, I'm not sure. But either way, thank you guys for watching and I'll see you in the next one.